I mean, isn't there a fair point here, though, that the Western media had kind of pre-scripted this election, and it did see good guys and bad guys? It was very clear about that. It took sides. I mean, I think that you'd accept that, did you? That it kind of it took sides in terms of who it believed should win in the interest of both Iran. You don't believe that?
No, I said that there's probably a predisposition, personally, amongst some senior journalists to have a more flexible system in Iran. And particularly because of the behaviour at the UN and the statements from Ahmadinejad, he's seen as a dangerous madman. So, I mean, there's a sympathy with Iran because they, their desire for peace, and he seems to be leading the country to war. But so there is a predisposition.
We need to really look at, are we really promoting democracy or not? If it's democracy, it's people's choice what they want to do. I might not agree with Mr. Ahmadinejad, but if majority agree, that is their choice, that is their privilege. Equally with the Hamas in Palestinian Authority, when people vote for it, we might like it, we might not like it. If we are promoting democracy, we should accept the outcome, rather than trying to manipulate it for our personal interests.
I mean, Tim, can I just bring Tim in? I mean, absolutely right, Tim, isn't it? The West, basically, if you look at Algeria in 1991, you look at election in Hamas, basically, the West does take sides when someone is actually challenging the West when it comes to an election.
Look, let's make no mistake about this. The West has been totally malign, criminal and hypocritical about its attitude towards Hezbollah in Lebanon, which is an important and productive part of the Lebanese political system and is now playing, despite all the depredations, is now playing an important part in the Lebanese system. Whether it lost the elections or won them is irrelevant.
Accepted it immediately.
And it's there to stay. As to Hamas, well, that was outrageous, and it's still outrageous, and that was, again, hypocritical. And I have no compunction in saying that, and I think the BBC, for one, because I watch it the most and listen to it the most, I think, for one, the BBC's debate about that has been extremely one-sided, and the reporting has been extremely unfair. What we're talking about here, I think, is not about the long-term reporting about Iran, which I think has been very, as you said, very, very negative. That's, by the way, is something about the Western press. It's negative about everything. I mean, it's a way of reporting.
No, it's not negative about Egypt in the same way, is it? Well, or Saudi Arabia, where there's probably less freedoms.
No, but the Egyptian situation has been written about and talked about, but not as much as this. The focus is on Iran because Iran, to some extent, is the most important country in the Middle East region. It's now its influence in the region, its power in the region. Egypt is a satrap of the Americans. It's not an important place at the moment. Iran is, so there's definitely a focus on Iran, which cannot be ignored.
Look, let's get the... Sorry, Tim, to interrupt you there, but just want to keep things moving and get the audience back in here. Gentleman in the back, yes, sir?
Given that the Guardian Council control which candidates are allowed to stand in the first place, can this be described as an election at all?
The limits on democracy, perhaps, Professor Marandi. It's not really a true democracy in the first place, is it, when the Guardian Council can prohibit people standing?
Well, can I go to another issue first and then quickly come back to this?
Quickly, if you may.
When you say that Ahmadinejad is a madman, again, I think the problem is that the Western media does misrepresent him a great deal. And I think by implication, one is saying that the Iranian people are mad. Because Mr. Ahmadinejad was voted into office 4 years ago by the Iranian people. He was a well-known politician. He was the mayor of Tehran for a number of years. He campaigned. And over the last 4 years, he has been in power and he was re-elected. Now, whether he won or lost, let's say that there are very serious questions of fraud. He had millions of votes. I think it's very unfair to call to say that, because by extension that means that Iranians are a bunch of backward people who don't understand the difference between madness or not. But going back to the Guardian Council, in general, the Guardian Council is itself, 6 of the members are elected by the leader, 6 members are elected by the judiciary and parliament. The leader himself is elected and can be removed at any time by a council of experts, which is itself elected by the public. In fact, in this election, presidential election, we had in some places in Iran where, let's say, the previous member of this council of experts had passed away or for whatever reason, was no longer a member, new elections to bring in new people. So in a sense, you do have checks and balances. You have presidential elections, you have elections for parliament, for...
But I mean, the question was basically that are there limits to democracy, or is this something that there are all over the world?
In Iran, the system is not a liberal democracy, and they don't claim it to be a liberal democracy. They call it an Islamic democracy. The ideology behind it is Islamic. Now, how democratic is it? I think if you take into account the fact that you have hundreds of thousands of American troops surrounding Iran, constant threats coming from the United States, including the Obama administration, where Obama himself said all options are on the table. When you have the United States government funding different television organizations, different groups to destabilize the country.
Overarching security
issues. You do see, when you take all those into account, still the country is quite open.
I mean, security is always excuses for dictatorship.
But that's used. But it's used also in Britain. It's used in the United States.
Restrictions on freedom. What have you got to hide?
So is it a limited democracy in your view?
I mean, obviously I don't know as much as you do, but I mean about the structure of your governmental system. But basically you've got a supreme leader. He hasn't been elected, but appointed. He's, what is he, how old is he? 79?
69.
69. 69, okay. And he's alleged not to meet people from outside. He has a small group of people. Now, I mean, and he makes all the decisions on foreign policy and defense. He's the commander-in-chief. Is he totally au fait? Was he aware, for example, fully of the idea of Obama reaching out, the West reaching out? And he's backing President Ahmadinejad. I don't know.
But I mean, is it right for the West to impose its model of democracy?
Well, exactly. I mean, look, there are as many democracy as there are Democrats in this world, and the fact of the matter is that Bush, Al Gore, it eventually was decided by Supreme Court, which is not elected, and they decided for Bush, which incidentally we all know got less vote than Al Gore. There are a couple of things down there, that
But it's transparent. Journalists can cover
that.
What have you got to hide? You're keeping journalists out. Can I just tell you how? Perhaps you don't know how it works. You got a 2-week license to work. It's the Ministry of Islamic Guidance, if I'm correct, which has now put it out to 3 separate private companies who are charging up sometimes $30,000 a time. They're making lots and lots of money. Is that free enterprise or corruption? I don't know. But the actual method of you having the official minder, 3 days request to go to a city outside. You to get private minder in the evening. It's so complicated, so difficult, so restrictive. What are you guys trying to hide?
Isn't a problem, Professor, actually, that Peter's got a point that there is a problem that Western journalists are seen as part of the politics of Iran. They're not just seen as impartial observers by the Iranian regime when they work there.
Well, again, I think there are lots of issues. One is that the West and Western countries and the Western media have not had a very positive past in the country. I don't believe that Iran is in any way or form a utopia, but I think that Iran is a far more open society than all of America's allies in the region, including Israel, because I consider Israel to be an apartheid and racist state. And, it's like apartheid South Africa being a democracy. The fact that 85% of Iranians took part in this election, regardless of the result, means that for Iranians, this election was relevant. It was meaningful. In the United States, as I said, in Iran you have all these problems. You have foreign interference. In the United States, there was one single attack on New York, where devastating attack, a horrific attack, but then you had the Patriot Act. Compare one attack on 9/11 to what goes on a daily basis in Iran. You have constant threats coming from the superpower in the world. Despite that, Iran has always been far more open than Egypt, than the United Arab Emirates, than Bahrain, than Saudi Arabia, than Jordan, than even Turkey in many ways, because the Turkish government, though elected, if they go too far, the army can overthrow them. Okay. So I think that if the United States wants to help Iran, if it wants to be friendly towards Iran, the best way forward is to stop interfering in the country's internal affairs.
Get out of Iraq and wants Iran's help to do that.